Liberal Viewer presents.
So, welcome to the October 30th edition of Liberal Viewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. You can give a thumbs up to this video if you enjoy the weekend's 20 best, most newsworthy clips for what should be a really educational, fair use media criticism and political analysis show for you all tonight. As usual, my clips come mostly from the Sunday morning news analysis shows on the Big Five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States. You can see the 4 subtopics I'm covering listed down in the video description. If you're watching as a recorded show, I'll actually put time indexes down there so you can skip between the topics and watch the ones that most interest you. I've also put a link down there to this clip list of the 20 clips that I'm using. These are the notes that I use. These are actually the file names of the clips. That's why they're all strung together and they're kind of hard to read, and you may not understand them, but you can at least pretty much figure out the network and who's speaking in the clips and the general topic of the clip. The 4 subtopics I'm covering are all on the 2016 presidential campaign. The first huge big topic this week, instead of Donald Trump being the controversy, it's Hillary Clinton, and Anthony Weiner is in the news. His shared laptop with Hillary Clinton's aide, Huma Abedin, is apparently restarting or reinvigorating some FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton's email scandal, which so far hasn't really generated that much of a scandal, or at least not enough to derail her campaign for all these months. I'm going to cover that pretty extensively. Then I'll have a few quick clips on some of the polls, and then a couple clips at the end talking about some other news from Donald Trump's campaign, just a back and forth with Kellyanne Conway about anti-Semitic racists at his rallies, and then one clip at the end where Bill Maher is making a really impassioned plea to cynical millennials who think that they're both bad to actually not have this false equivalency and to vote for Hillary Clinton, and I'll talk about why that's what I think I'm going to do in California at the end also. And if you stay tuned to the end, I'll talk about some upcoming videos I'm making if that's something that interests you. But let me start off with the political comedy. I always like to start off with HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher was back last week, and he spent about 2 minutes in his monologue talking about the Anthony Weiner scandal and made a few good jokes about it. Also, I think he started with a particularly good joke about the Halloween angle, since tomorrow is Halloween. And I'll talk about that a little more after you watch that clip with me over here.
I think it is rather appropriate that this election is so close to Halloween, because what happens in every scary movie? You think you killed the monster. You killed him 10 times, and then a tiny orange hand comes out of the grave. Oh, yeah. Oh. Believe me, for Hillary, today was Nightmare on Email Street. Did you see what happened today? Okay, the FBI, if you didn't, this was all over the news today. Giant story. The FBI found some more Hillary emails. So they're reopening the investigation. Great, huh? Hillary's emails are like unreleased Tupac songs. Just when you think they have them all, they found a few more. And you'll never believe where they found these new ones. On Anthony Weiner's computer. I'm not making that up. On Anthony Weiner's computer. No one thought to look among the dick pics. Oh, that's where the emails are. Now, for those of you who are not political junkies, you might be asking why? Why on Anthony Weiner's computer? Because Anthony Weiner is under investigation. That's right. Yeah, man, I don't bullshit here, okay? No high school dance. Yeah, Anthony Weiner's under investigation for sexting with a underage girl across state lines. So the FBI seized all his computers. He is married, or was married, to Huma Abedin, who is Hillary Clinton's aide. And they were using the same computer, which begs my first question: why was Huma using Anthony's computer? If you, one thing she didn't want to go near, it would be his computer. So Hillary's emails are intermingled with Anthony Weiner's sexting? No wonder why she had her server wiped. I'd have it boiled.
So he started with a good joke about the orange hand reaching up in the classic Halloween movie when you think the monster's dead, and the boiling joke at the end there was pretty good. But overall, he didn't seem too concerned about this scandal because there's not a lot to this so-called scandal yet. There's not a lot of new information there other than the fact that emails were found, and most of the reporting seems to show that they were on Anthony Weiner's computer. I'm a little worried about it just because one of the reasons I think Donald Trump's scandals have gotten so much more play than this email thing is this one's a lot more boring. That one has sex in it. And now you bring in Anthony Weiner and all of a sudden there's like Weiner in the email scandal. So I don't know if that's going to hurt. But Bill Maher actually made kind of a good joke about that in his monologue about how Hillary Clinton is... her political fortunes have been ruled by men's penises, basically. First her husband's, and then Donald Trump's, and now Anthony Weiner's. And I think actually when Van Jones came on, he did that joke maybe one better. And I'll discuss that a little more after we watch that 30-second clip right here.
Your reaction to today's news?
Well, she's got 4 men in her life. Trump, who's a pervert. Clinton, who's got a racy past. You've got Weiner, whose name speaks for itself. And Barack Obama. And for once, the black guy is the one guy not in trouble.
You don't have to be that black about it. You've made your point.
So yeah, I thought that was a pretty good joke from a non-comedian Van Jones, an actual like Politico, former member of the Obama administration. So he actually made several good jokes in that interview. I think the whole interview is available on the real-time YouTube channel. I put a link down in the video description to that. But I want to move from the political comedy on this topic, although Bill Maher did give several of the facts there. I want to compare the different ways that the corporate news media covered this program this morning. And the one that I guess is closest to political comedy, of course, is Fox News, which you could tell they just couldn't believe this is like what they've been dreaming about forever, that there'd be like some new salacious piece of information about the email scandal that would let them like spend the entire hour on it. And you think I'm joking? You'll hear right here Chris Wallace say, we're going to drill into this and spend the entire hour on it. I think they were the only one who really spent the entire hour on the Anthony Weiner, Huma Abedin, like new email scandal, as you can see. And then it goes into their actual news reporting from Catherine Herridge, which has a couple points in it I wanted to quibble with after you watch it with me over here.
The full hour drilling down into the effect all this may have on the race. We'll speak with Donald Trump's running mate, Governor Mike Pence, Clinton campaign manager Robby Mook, and the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes. But first, we want to get the latest on the FBI investigation from Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge. Catherine.
Chris, a law enforcement source tells Fox News that thousands of records are involved. The New York FBI team assessed them as relevant, telling their colleagues on the Clinton email case, quote, we think we've come across some documents pertinent to your investigation. Clinton wants the evidence public, which is not standard in ongoing cases.
Voters deserve to get full and complete facts. And so we've called on Director Comey to explain everything right away, put it all out on the table.
A source close to the FBI probe could not recall issuing a subpoena for Abedin's records, adding they did not believe the device shared by Abedin and Weiner was searched by agents. Abedin told the FBI in April that she sent State Department emails, including this one from Clinton, to her personal Yahoo account where it was easier to print. In June, Abedin swore under oath in a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit that she looked through all her devices that could hold government emails. On Thursday, FBI Director James Comey was briefed on the findings, and that same day he decided to reinitiate the email case and notify Congress. The director's decision is described to Fox News as driven by the sheer volume of records and the commitment he made under oath.
Would you reopen the Clinton investigation if you discovered new information that was both relevant and substantial?
It's hard for me to answer in the abstract. We would certainly look at any new and substantial information.
In his memo to employees, Comey said they don't know if the emails are significant, but former FBI agents said anything suggesting intent, lying to investigators, obstruction of justice, or sharing classified information with a foreign entity would warrant such a move. The director notified the Attorney General of his decision, which the Justice Department did not support, and there's no expectation that a review can be complete before Election Day, Chris.
Catherine, thank you.
So did you see all those nasty reasons that they might pursue an investigation that Catherine Herridge put up there at the end? That seemed like a little bit of a sort of a sideswipe smear there at Hillary Clinton, like trying to list these are all the things she could have done wrong, like in jeopardizing national security with a foreign power and all those other things they put up there. And then Fox News has been like looking for the right word to use for what's going on with the email investigation. First, they said it was being reopening the investigation, which isn't quite true, because they haven't decided whether the information is significant enough. That's what they have to go through all the emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop. But that's even what, that hasn't even been confirmed by anyone publicly. That's what all the corporate news media is reporting. That's what their reporting is saying. I'll talk about that a little more in just a minute. But they first said they were reopening the investigation. Here you saw Catherine Herridge say reinitiating the investigation. I've heard some news anchors on Fox News saying they're rebooting the investigation. But basically, there's pertinent. If you read the letter that James Comey sent to members of Congress, there's emails that are pertinent and might be significant. And so whether that's going to open the investigation or they're just going to sift through it and decide, and it's going to take some time, that's really the question. So I want to move on now to the next report is actually the one from Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press. I thought this one was a little bit harder on Donald Trump. I guess they say NBC's more leaning to the left. I don't see that so much on Meet the Press, but at least in this story, I think they lean a little bit to the left because they're harder. It seems like they had some story about Donald Trump's problems in the campaign all ready to go before this happened on Friday. And so that's like the last third of this canned pre-recorded news story that Chuck Todd had ready for the beginning of Meet the Press. And they also talk about how Donald Trump has kind of flip-flopped on whether the FBI is crooked and rigged or not, and I'll talk about that after we watch that together here.
Some of you may have heard about a letter that the FBI Director sent out yesterday.
With 9 days to go, an October surprise.
It's not just strange, it's unprecedented, and it is deeply troubling.
Nearly 4 months after recommending no criminal charges against Clinton, FBI Director James Comey told members of Congress in a letter on Friday that new emails have surfaced which, quote, appear to be pertinent to the investigation. Law enforcement officials say the emails were found on a laptop computer belonging to former Congressman Anthony Weiner, married to but estranged from Huma Abedin, a top Clinton campaign aide. The FBI is investigating sexually explicit text messages Weiner allegedly sent to a 15-year-old girl in North Carolina. Trump immediately tried to capitalize on the news.
Her criminal action was willful, deliberate, intentional, and purposeful.
Trump's denunciation of the FBI on Thursday,
And I think the biggest rigging of all is what's happened with the FBI.
turned to praise on Friday.
It might not be as rigged as I thought, right?
According to officials, Abedin used the laptop to email Clinton. Investigators will now examine the thousands of emails belonging to Abedin to see if they have anything to do with the original Clinton investigation. The official also said there is no indication so far that anyone was withholding evidence. Meanwhile, Republicans down the ballot have seized on the FBI revelations as part of their closing argument.
That is my letter from Director Comey telling me he's reopening the investigation.
It's like throwing a political lifeline to Republicans who are in embattled House and Senate races.
But is there enough time for Trump to take advantage?
This race is still tippable. It's not necessarily it's not going to move voters to Donald Trump, but it potentially could move voters away from Hillary Clinton.
Before Friday, it appeared Trump's electoral path had narrowed. On Saturday, he stumped in Arizona, a state Democrats have carried just once since 1948. Clinton campaigns in Phoenix Wednesday. Nearly 20 million Americans have already voted. More Democrats have voted in 8 states, Republicans in 4. Trump is also short of cash. On Friday, Trump wired $10 million of his own money to his campaign, bringing his personal total contributions to $66 million, $34 million short of what he originally pledged. Big Republican donors are abandoning Trump, channeling money instead to down-ballot Republicans.
We do have disunity, and I think that is something that complicates us, at least in terms of making sure that we have the basic mechanical things that are getting done to turn out the vote.
Joining me now with an update.
So I think that NBC story, like I said, is more hard on the Trump campaign. Like I said, also it seems at the end there they had like some prepared stuff about how the Trump campaign was doing badly that they kept in, even though that wasn't really the main subject of the story. I don't know. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. Speaking of which, I was reading your live comments while I was watching that clip with you, and I saw someone commenting on what I said about the Fox News clip, that they were being biased by showing all these charges that could result if bad news comes out of these new emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop. I saw Pedro Maher say that totally disagree with me, saying I don't know if you could read that. It was a little bit small. It was kind of weird. I don't know. That screen capture got messed up somehow. But basically saying that these are realistic charges Hillary Clinton could be facing. Well, I mean, they are realistic charges if there was evidence of intent. You know, that's what they were saying at the beginning there. But there's no indication that there actually is any new evidence, or even that any of these emails are new. Some of the reporting that's come out since the Sunday morning news programs is this is all based on metadata. They found in the many emails on Anthony Weiner's computer, and they've only looked through the metadata, some of which means like who the email is to and from and like the subject line, but not the content. And so there's some that go to state.gov and some that go to hillaryclinton.com, and that's why James Comey sent this letter over to Congress, but they have no idea what the content of those emails is, so there's no basis to really start talking about new charges, I don't think. And I want to move on to the next look at what happened with Anthony Weiner's laptop and the new email reopening, rebooting, reinitiating, or just the new look at Hillary Clinton's emails that happened over the weekend, and the James Comey's letter to Congress. This is the ABC version, which I think really more concentrates on how Hillary Clinton is fighting back. Although, I'm sorry, this is the CNN one, not the ABC one. CNN State of the Union. Jake Tapper starts off with the State of the Union being under review, and also talking about how Hillary Clinton is fighting back, although also talking about the Anthony Weiner aspect as fact, which most of these corporate news media outlets, based on their reporting, even though no one has officially acknowledged it, that I guess they have like 2 anonymous sources confirming it or whatever their standards are, but they report it as fact. And later I'm going to show Jake Tapper actually arguing with someone from Hillary Clinton's campaign about whether he should be calling it speculative or reporting or fact, or, well, you can see how Jake Tapper reports it in his opening minute and 15 seconds from the program this morning here.
The State of our Union is under review. Hillary Clinton fighting back at FBI Director James Comey after Comey made the unprecedented move of just days before the presidential election, telling Congress his agency would be investigating newly discovered emails pertinent to her private email server.
It's pretty strange to put something like that out with such little information right before an election. In fact, it's not just strange, it's unprecedented, and it is deeply troubling.
Back in July, FBI Director Comey said Clinton had been extremely careless in her use of the private email server, but he recommended no criminal charges. Since then, former Congressman Anthony Weiner, the estranged husband of top Clinton aide Huma Abedin, has come under investigation for messages exchanged with an underage girl. It's that investigation in which these newly discovered emails surfaced, but Comey offered no indication of what their content might be. Top officials for both campaigns will be here in minutes for a special edition of State of the Union with limited commercial interruption. There is
So I thought that Jake Tapper there, overall, it was a good review of what had gone on, and the one point I wanted to make, that he did something that several other news outlets did, where they basically report the Anthony Weiner aspect of this as fact, even though no one has gone on the record to confirm it yet. And I'll show him arguing about that, like I said, a little bit later. But now I want to move on to the ABC report on this, which actually starts off with the new ABC tracking poll where Hillary Clinton has lost 11 points in the last, is it week or 10 days? I think just in the last week. It's a tracking poll, which means they keep polling all the time and track how the results change. And they didn't really report much on it on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. This is really the only place they talked about it. I'm going to do a section on polls a little later, but this is really their report on the Anthony Weiner scandal outbreak on Friday. And I think this is actually the best, what they call the TikTok of events, where they show what happened in what order over the weekend on the story. And I'll talk about that after we watch it together here.
Yet this one aimed right at Hillary Clinton. There she is on stage with J-Lo last night in Miami, shaking off that shocking news from FBI Director James Comey that his investigators have found emails which could be connected to Clinton's previously closed case. Clinton also shaking off our latest poll, which shows the tightest race in weeks. It has her ahead by just 1 point, 46 to 45, an 11-point drop from last Sunday. The poll is a rolling 4-day average, so it doesn't completely capture the email effect. But 1/3 of those polled after the news broke say it makes them less likely to support Clinton. Most are Republicans, but one early sign that news could energize Clinton opponents, depress potential supporters. So has a race that looked all but over taken its most dramatic turn yet? It hit about 1 p.m. Friday. Hillary Clinton on a plane to Iowa with shaky Wi-Fi, no access to the news. 30,000 feet below, Comey tells Congress that the FBI has discovered new emails from Clinton's closest aide, Huma Abedin. The emails were found on a computer Abedin shared with her estranged husband, Anthony Weiner, under investigation for sexting a minor. Neither Huma nor Clinton knows about the crisis below, but Trump does.
I need to open with a very critical breaking news announcement. They are reopening the case into her criminal and illegal conduct.
On touchdown, no answers from Clinton.
Secretary Clinton, any reaction to Director Comey reopening his investigation into your emails?
5 hours later, she faces the press.
The director himself has said he doesn't know whether the emails referenced in his letter are significant or not. I'm confident, whatever they are, will not change the conclusion reached in July.
Saturday, the story splashed across the swing states. Trump is energized.
Hillary has nobody to blame but herself. Her criminal action was willful, deliberate, intentional, and purposeful.
But after news breaks that Comey defied Justice Department guidance by releasing that letter to Congress, Clinton counterattacks.
It's pretty strange to put something like that out with such little information right before an election. In fact, it's not just strange, it's unprecedented, and it is deeply troubling.
And with 9 days to go, Trump has a new talking point.
This is the biggest political scandal since Watergate. And it's everybody's deepest hope that justice, at last, will be beautifully delivered.
Okay, let's dig into this now with our experts, our senior...
So, like I said, I think ABC gave the best TikTok of events, and they also talked in the report about how what James Comey did violated Justice Department guidelines, and I'm going to talk about that a little more when one of the guests I show on the Sunday morning programs argues that in one of the answers. But before I get to the answers of the guests on the show, I promised to show how all the corporate news outlets covered this, and I've shown 4. So the last one is CBS's Face the Nation. Here, John Dickerson did a really short, I guess you could say, unbiased summary of the facts. not in no way going into all the details you just saw on ABC, and then came in with some of the most updated information from their reporter, Jeff Pegues, I think that's how you pronounce it. He reported on what's going on with the warrant and some of the pushback against James Comey, and I'll talk about that after we watch that 2-minute report over here.
With a little over a week to go before Election Day, the backlash from FBI Director Comey's decision to make public the discovery of possible evidence tied to the Clinton email server investigation has been intense. And there's been a lot of confusion. What we know is that thousands of emails were found on a laptop belonging to former New York Congressman Anthony Weiner and his wife, Huma Abedin, that could have some bearing on the investigation into whether or not Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server violated the law. Weiner is under investigation for charges of sending sexually explicit text to a 15-year-old girl. Abedin is a top aide to Hillary Clinton. The couple is separated, but she reportedly transferred State Department emails to her personal Yahoo account in order to print them for Secretary Clinton. We begin our coverage with CBS News Justice correspondent Jeff Pegues, who is outside the FBI this morning. Good morning, Jeff. There's been a lot of speculation that Director Comey wouldn't have taken this turn if he didn't have something big in these emails that he has read, but they haven't even gotten a warrant to actually read the emails yet, have they?
They have not. As of late Saturday night, as we reported, they have not secured this warrant, and that's important to this process. They cannot legally look at these emails until they secure that warrant. The warrant that seized the laptop, that pertained to the Anthony Weiner investigation, so they knew they require a new search warrant to look at these new emails, John.
And so, Jeff, there's a chance they could be duplicates or not relevant to the case. Is that why there's been some news that the Justice Department was against the idea of Director Comey sending a letter announcing this latest turn?
Well, listen, one of the cardinal rules here is that you don't disclose information about an investigation, and certainly close to an election. So that is something that is at play here.
Any chance Director Comey would turn over?
So you see the CBS report also mentioned that Justice Department policy, which basically 6 weeks before an election, you're not supposed to disclose information that could affect the outcome of an election. That's a Justice Department policy. Never mind the fact that they're not supposed to talk about ongoing investigations. So why James Comey did this is very puzzling, as you'll see Tim Kaine say a little bit later. And that's why I'll discuss that issue a little more. But the other thing that Jeff Pegues said, the reporter, about how they have to get a warrant to look at what's in this computer, generally that is true, but there are some exceptions to that. And one of the big exceptions, I saw a different pundit, I can't remember who I saw talking about this, but if Anthony Weiner is cooperating, if he gives permission and it's his laptop, there may be, just to make sure that there isn't some, non-shared interest that Huma Abedin has in the computer, like some partition where they couldn't access it just based on Anthony Weiner's permission. Maybe that's why Jeff Pegues is reporting that they need to get a warrant. But generally, if you're cooperating and you voluntarily give your consent, they don't need to get a warrant. You give up your right to have them have to show probable cause to a judge. I do all these know your rights talks and tell people never give consent to a search, because even if the police end up searching you after you don't give your consent, that at least gives you the right to later say it was a bad search and they didn't have probable cause. If you give your consent, it doesn't matter if they had probable cause, because they didn't need it. They didn't need probable cause. You gave them consent. That's why they might not need a warrant. So that's the one commentary I wanted to make on the CBS part of this. And now I want to move on to the guests on the different shows. First, the biggest newsmaker, I guess, was Bob Goodlatte, who is the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's the head Republican on the Senate Judiciary Committee. And apparently he was they say briefed by James Comey about this yesterday, but it sounds more like he said a bunch of things to James Comey, and James Comey didn't say much of anything to him, as you can see from this back and forth on, let's see, Bob Goodlatte was over on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, talking to George Stephanopoulos over here.
Chairman, let me begin with you. I understand you were briefed by Mr. Comey yesterday. What can you tell us about what he said?
Yes, John Conyers, the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, and I both had the opportunity to speak to Director Comey yesterday. We both encouraged him to make sure that the American people have as much information as possible before they have to make a decision on November 8th. Based upon this stunning new development that the Bureau is examining new evidence in this case that they said they had completed several months ago. So that's very important. But we also asked him, I asked him if he could do that based upon the fact that much of this is classified material and based upon the fact that he cannot in any way jeopardize the investigation. He did not give us any response in terms of what more he could say, but he certainly took that under advisement. I also asked him what the status was of the referral that I made along with Chairman Jason Chaffetz of the Oversight Committee of potential impeachment, potential perjury charges to be brought with regard to Mrs. Clinton, and he deferred to the Justice Department itself. He did not answer that question as well. But when people talk about protocol, we haven't heard from the Justice Department about that in 3.5 months since that letter was sent.
I want to get to Congressman Schiff, but let me follow up with one thing there. You mentioned classified information. How do you or Mr. Comey know that there's classified information involved here if you haven't seen the emails?
Well, we don't know, and we don't know what the basis was for Mr. Comey making the decision to further pursue the case. We don't know whether it's informants. We don't know whether they've had access to looking at some of this information. We don't know what the basis was. We do know they know something is there, and as you saw in the lead-up clip you had, he said he would reopen it if there was substantial new investigation
Congressman Schiff,
materials. And so that's what I think we're looking at here.
Several Democratic senators have...
I think George Stephanopoulos did a good job there pointing out that Bob Goodlatte, the Senate Judiciary Committee chair, was kind of like slipping in the idea of confidential information when there wasn't really any basis for saying there was confidential information. But about halfway through that clip, did you notice Bob Goodlatte's big Freudian slip? I didn't want to ruin it by pointing out before the clip, but where instead of talking about how he was hoping for perjury charges against Hillary Clinton, he was talking about investigating her for impeachment. There's actually been a lot of talk that this whole email investigation is going to go on for years, and it's all going to be part of the impeachment proceedings that are going to start like January 20th, 2017. It'd be pretty sad if that's the way this goes, but I don't know. What do you think about the Freudian slip there from Bob Goodlatte? Just sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, or is that impeachment is really what's on his mind? Is that what's really getting him hot now with the email investigation? You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. I'm now going to move on to several clips from guests talking about the flip-flop on both sides, where the Democrats have been really saying what a great guy James Comey is because he exonerated Hillary Clinton in the whole email scandal and said she shouldn't be indicted. And Donald Trump's been saying it's rigged. The FBI was rigged for clearing Hillary Clinton. And then when James Comey sent out this letter to Congress 10 days before the election, like everybody switched sides. And now Donald Trump's saying, well, maybe it's not so rigged. And the Democrats are saying, what is going on with James Comey? And even like attacking him for violating Justice Department protocols. And I actually have always thought James had a good opinion of James Comey because he's kind of like this hero in the story from the George W. Bush administration, where when John Ashcroft, the Attorney General, was undergoing gallbladder surgery, James Comey was like the acting Attorney General, and he refused to reauthorize warrantless wiretapping, and then like Alberto Gonzalez had to go to John Ashcroft's bedside and try to get him to like sign the authorization, and he wouldn't sign, and so James Comey like made them make some modifications to warrantless wiretapping because he stood up to other people in the Bush administration. So based on that story, I've always had like a good opinion of him. And then when he cleared Hillary Clinton and made that statement about how no reasonable prosecutor would, based on this evidence, go forward with the prosecution because there wasn't clear evidence of intent, and no one's ever been prosecuted without clear evidence of intent under these particular statutes before. That made sense to me too. So I did start with being one of the people who was a James Comey fan to some extent. And so I kind of am worried that I might be flipping here, and here are several other people who have to explain why they may or may not be flipping on what they think about James Comey. The first one is Mike Pence, where Chris Wallace over on Fox News Sunday asked him specifically about how Donald Trump is flipping on Pence, and his first answer is, I think, another piece of political comedy, which I won't ruin by telling you what he's going to say, but we'll talk about it after you watch it over here.
Have about Donald Trump is his temperament. I just want to show how dramatically he changed his mind about the FBI and Comey in just a few hours on Friday. Here he is.
The FBI rolled over, and the Department of Justice rolled over.
I have great respect for the FBI for righting this wrong.
For weeks, Trump has been saying that the election is rigged. Now, in the course of a couple of hours on Friday, he says, well, maybe it's not as rigged as I thought it was. Is that presidential?
Well, I think what you see here is an example of real leadership. I mean, Donald Trump...
Wait. How's that leadership to say? I mean, in other words, the argument, sir, the argument that you could make is Comey, whether you liked it or not, made a good faith decision last July. He made a good faith decision on Friday, and neither of those show it's rigged, but Trump was ascribing the worst possible motives to it.
Oh, that's because we thought the investigation should never have been closed, Chris. And Donald Trump, the reason why he's appealed to people all across this country, the reason why you see the momentum in this campaign is because people find in Donald Trump someone that just speaks his mind straight from, it tells people exactly where he stands. And it was just incomprehensible this summer when the director of the FBI came out and, he literally indicted Hillary Clinton in the press and then said, we're not recommending that she be indicted. When anyone in the service, you've got General Cartwright and others, people have done a fraction of the number of things that Hillary Clinton has done in the mishandling of classified information have been prosecuted. And frankly, as I said in my vice presidential debate, if my son or Tim Kaine's son had mishandled classified information the way that Hillary Clinton had and the FBI said she had, they would at least have been court-martialed. It was incomprehensible. Donald Trump continued to make that case. But now with new information, I think we all want to recognize the FBI stepping forward at this moment has demonstrated real integrity to keep their word to Republicans and Democrats in the Congress and say we have found what's being described now as a volume of information, of new information, and that we have reopened the investigation. And it's important that they told the Congress that before this election. We're confident that they'll work through that in a professional and timely way. But
you said, Governor, that Trump...
So, yeah, Donald Trump's flip-flop on James Comey, what it shows is great leadership. Great leadership. I like that answer, but the rest of it didn't make didn't persuade me. I don't know. Governor Mike Pence of Indiana, the vice presidential nominee of the Republican Party, is not someone who persuades me on a lot of things, so you can let me know if that's because of my bias or it's because he just wasn't arguing very well down in the comment section. I want to move on to sort of the flip of that question. This is over from NBC's Meet the Press. Chuck Todd is asking Robby Mook, the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton, sort of the reverse question. Everybody on the Democratic side loved James Comey for exonerating Hillary Clinton back in July. How can you question him now? And I actually agree more with his answer that, that it's troubling what he's doing here, and it's especially troubling given that he has this history of being a more honest guy, as I was describing earlier in regard to the whole warrantless wiretapping thing back in the George W. Bush administration. And I'll talk a little more about what Robby Mook says after we watch what he says together over here.
To react to how Democrats talked about James Comey before Friday. Here it is.
This is a great man. We are very privileged in our country to have him be the director of the FBI.
No one can question the integrity, the competence.
A wonderful and tough career public servant, Jim Comey. Jim was in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia when I was the mayor of Richmond, and he's somebody with the highest standards of integrity.
Robby, of course, that final soundbite was from Hillary Clinton's running mate, Tim Kaine, and he said it just 2 weeks ago. Does Secretary Clinton and Senator Kaine still believe those things about Jim Comey?
Well, I think that Director Comey does have a long and distinguished record, and I think that's why people are particularly puzzled about this letter that was sent to the Hill. First and foremost, it was 3 paragraphs. It didn't provide any details whatsoever. He said that there were some emails. He didn't know if they were significant or not. This letter was sent to leaders on the Hill. Unsurprisingly, it was leaked immediately by the Republicans and leaked in a way that mischaracterized the small amount of information that was in the letter. And all we're asking for now is let's just get all the information out there on the table. There's hypotheticals flying all over the place. And I think what's particularly surprising is Yahoo News reported last night that Director Comey may not have even seen any of the information in these emails before putting out the letter. So to send a letter to Congress saying we may have some information, we don't know if it's significant or not, without even looking at what's inside there, 10, 11 days before a presidential election, it's just very curious.
You know, it's interesting. John Podesta, the campaign chairman, wrote on Medium. He said, by being vague and obfuscating, Comey opened the door to conspiracy theories, what you've been saying, and there's now a surge of fundraising for Trump and his team. Do you think Comey has put the finger on the scale for Donald Trump?
Well, I think the issue here is if he doesn't come out and get all the information on the table, he's going to let anyone, any conspiracy theory, take the day. I will say we've seen a surge of activity on our side as well. We had our best Saturday of fundraising ever yesterday. We had over 50,000 volunteers out knocking on doors and turning our supporters out to the polls. We actually felt a surge of support and momentum as well. So we're feeling fine in that regard. But again, let's just get all the information out there so that the rumors and the hypotheticals can be put to rest. And again, we're hearing a lot of criticism now from former Justice Department officials, from the former Clinton administration, the former Bush administration, pointing out this is unprecedented. And there are Justice Department policies against doing something like this so close to an election.
You know, there's an easy way for you guys to...
So Robby Mook there got into the Justice Department policy a little there at the end. I think you'll see Tim Kaine does a better job of that in the next clip I'm going to show, and even kind of repeats the talking point that you saw Chuck Todd confront Robby Mook there with at the beginning, that Tim Kaine had said really nice things about James Comey just a couple weeks ago. And Tim Kaine will even, like I said, will repeat that in the clip I'm going to show in a minute. The only other criticism I have of that last clip is I think that Chuck Todd's follow-up there was pretty weak. It was almost like a softball question. It kind of like led into the answer that Robby Mook had prepared about his concerns about what James Comey had done there. And so it certainly wasn't as confrontational as the first question. You would think a follow-up would be more confrontational than the first to try to like get him to answer the parts he didn't answer. But like I said, I want to move on to the next question, clip, which is the question that George Stephanopoulos asked to Tim Kaine on basically the same question of the flip-flop on how you feel about James Comey. And like I said, I think Tim Kaine did a better job of the really important putting the really important points in there, and of being completely ready for the charge that he's flip-flopping on something he said a couple weeks ago. He says almost the same thing he said a couple weeks ago, as you'll see over here.
By James Comey's actions. Senator Dianne Feinstein called his actions appalling. Howard Dean, former Democratic candidate for president, says, quote, he may have destroyed the credibility of the FBI forever, put himself on the same side as Putin. Do you agree with that?
You know, what I said when I talked about this Friday was it's just extremely puzzling. Why would you break these two protocols? Why would you release information that is so incomplete when you haven't even seen the material yourself 11 days before an election? Why would you talk about an ongoing investigation? I just have no way of understanding these actions. They're completely unprecedented, and that's why I think he owes the American public more information.
But in the past, you've had great praise from Director Comey. You called him a wonderful and tough career public servant. Do you still believe that?
That's what makes this. That's what makes this so hard to understand, George. It really does. I worked with Jim Comey when he was in the Eastern District of Virginia U.S. Attorney's Office, and I was mayor here. That's what makes this so completely puzzling. They did a very thorough investigation of this matter, and they weren't releasing, tentative conclusions along the way. They waited till they got to the end of it, and then he gave a very unequivocal finding. And so why he would release this sort of tentative letter and then have to back up on it within 24 hours when he hadn't even seen the emails himself, I just cannot understand it.
But how about the point that Dan Abrams was making earlier, that he was caught between a rock and a hard place, that he would have been criticized for keeping silent on an issue like this before the election?
George, the issue for the FBI director is not whether somebody would criticize him. The issue for the FBI director is he following established protocols for a law enforcement investigation? Criticism comes with the territory, but you can't tack and move one direction or the next to avoid criticism. Following established protocols and rules is what you would expect from a chief law enforcement official.
You say you're not worried about the impact on the race right now?
And that last part of the answer from Tim Kaine, I think, was especially good, because that between a rock and a hard place thing that George Stephanopoulos was talking about, discussion he had with the Justice Department correspondents, Dan Abrams, I think, is a legal analyst for ABC, where they were talking about how James Comey was caught between a rock and a hard place, because if he said something before the election, the Democrats would criticize him, but if it came out after the election, the Republicans would criticize him. But as Senator Tim Kaine pointed out there, what he should be thinking about is not who's going to criticize him. It should be, is he following Justice Department policies? And he's actually kind of violating some Justice Department policies by putting this information out that's talking about an ongoing investigation and within 6 weeks of an election. And so why he did that, like Tim Kaine said, I think it's kind of puzzling. What is even kind of more puzzling is trying to follow Kellyanne Conway's answer to this same question. Jake Tapper does a really valiant job. This is almost 5 minutes long. He's trying to get her to explain why it is that Trump is now lauding James Comey after attacking the FBI for being rigged and attacking James Comey's exoneration of Hillary Clinton last July. And Kellyanne Conway just will not accept the premise, because I heard her say this a few different times on different shows, and her basic argument is, well, James Comey didn't really exonerate her. He exonerated her, but then everything he said explained why he wasn't exonerating her, which you'll see her say over and over again, as I will discuss after we watch that almost 5-minute clip over here.
Donald Trump is hoping, of course, that this stunning development could change his electoral fortunes, and he is campaigning with new vigor.
Hillary has nobody to blame but herself for her mounting legal troubles. Her criminal action was willful, deliberate, intentional, and purposeful. Hillary set up an illegal server for the obvious purpose of shielding her criminal conduct from public disclosure and exposure. That didn't work.
And joining me now is Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thanks so much for joining us. Donald Trump is now saying that he has great respect for FBI Director James Comey, but take a listen to what Mr. Trump said just a couple weeks ago.
Likewise, they have essentially corrupted the director of the FBI to the point at which stories are already saying that the great, and they are truly great, men and women who work for the FBI are embarrassed and ashamed of what he's done to one of our truly great institutions, the FBI itself.
So is James Comey still corrupted, Kellyanne, or is he only corrupt when he does something that Mr. Trump disagrees with?
So there are two separate investigations here. First, on July 5th, Jim Comey came out and told the world, Jake, that he was declining prosecution of Hillary Clinton based on the investigation. He then proceeded to tell us every reason why he should have indicted her. She should have pressed charges, that she was reckless, she was careless. 2 days later, he testifies before Congress under oath and completely guts his conclusion and completely undercuts Secretary Clinton's previous statements that there was one device? No, there were many devices. Was there classified information exchange? Yes, there was. Was there national security information? Yes, there was. He completely undercut his own conclusion in that investigation. That led to tremendous frustration and criticism by many people who thought either put the statement out that you're not going to press charges and leave it at that, or if you're going to go public, at least let your comments, the evidence, match your conclusion. This new investigation is a completely separate matter in that he was in an impossible spot, it would seem to me, 11 days before an election. Had he sat on the information, one can argue that he also would be interfering with the election by not disclosing to the public that yet again, for the second time in a year, Hillary Clinton is under FBI investigation for something of her own doing. We are only having this conversation today, Jake, because Hillary Clinton flouted the law and went and set up a private server so she can hide stuff from the public.
Right.
And here we are again.
But Kellyanne, isn't this exactly what people, the public, the American people hate about politicians? One day somebody in law enforcement does something and they're corrupted, and the next day they're a man of great integrity. You yourself tweeted that there was zero accountability at the FBI. You retweeted an article that said, when combined, these moments prove that Mr. Comey gave Hillary Clinton a pass, and you wrote your own comment, zero accountability. I mean, what are voters supposed to think about this when you and your campaign have spent the last few months besmirching the reputation of James Comey?
No, I'd never besmirch the reputation. Zero accountability is about the process. And again, had Jim Comey simply come forward, Jake, back in July and said, we decline to press charges. The investigation is over. There will be no further charges. Had he just said that, then we would accept that result. What he did was he went on to explain why his conclusion was wrong. I guess he was trying to clear his own conscience. Why else be so public? I know many prosecutors, I've talked to them, who were confounded that Jim Comey set such a public standard by testifying before Congress, by having that unprecedented statement to the world on July 5th, where he was leading up to a conclusion that was different than the one he then announced. But, you know, back to your original point, isn't this what people hate about politicians? Yes, it is. But the politician here is Hillary Clinton. And it's she who has put herself, her campaign, and more importantly, the nation at risk. She's unqualified and unfit to be president based on her constantly flouting the law, based on her closest advisors not complying with and swearing under oath they've turned over all these devices when clearly they have not. It's they who have imperiled our national security.
So I think what James Comey would say was that he was being transparent over the summer, and he's being transparent now. But I want to move on to some other topics. Added a Trump rally in Phoenix.
And I'm actually going to show that next question too, which is quite a battle. But that was something of a battle between Jake Tapper and Kellyanne Conway there, where, I don't know, I mean, was she doing a good job or not doing a good job? I was reading the live comments along the way, and there were a lot of like pro-Kellyanne comments. Here's one from Middle Brother that I've imported here real quick. Kellyanne rocks, or there are a lot of positive comments about Kellyanne Conway, and I've said that I think that she is a very articulate creator of bullshit, and there was I mean, refusing to accept the premise there, I don't know, there were a lot of words in there, and it did a good job of deflecting the question, but there really wasn't a lot that you could like take home and really believe in at the end of that answer, I don't think. I mean, there was one thing in there, I think she said about how James Comey should have just come out and said that they were deciding not to pursue charges against Hillary Clinton without all the reasoning. That was a little out of the ordinary for a prosecutor. In a way, it almost reminded me of how they handled the decision not to indict the officer who shot Michael Brown in St. Louis County, where the prosecutor came out and gave this whole press conference and talked about the evidence, and that's not the thing that you usually see prosecutors do when they're not charging someone. So that was unusual, and I agree with Kellyanne on that. But other than that, most of what you said was very intricate, but not very persuasive to someone who's really paying attention, I guess. But I wanted to move on to this one additional answer from Kellyanne Conway that was talking to George Stephanopoulos about the next topic. The first topic that I just showed several clips on where guests were talking about the flip-flop on how Democrats and Republicans feel about James Comey. This next set of clips is about Huma Abedin and why she is, how she got involved in this and whether Hillary Clinton should ask her to reveal more information. And in this one, you see, this I think is Kellyanne Conway getting in. At the very end of that, she talked about Anthony Weiner being a pervert in that last clip, but here she has like three great little buzzwords, I think. One of them is she talks about pedophilia. She talks about Hillary Clinton's scandalabra. Not just scandal, but scandalabra. I like that word. And then she also gets in a little mention of Hillary Clinton being involved in defending a rape case when she was a court-appointed lawyer. So I think this is a much tighter and more better executed set of talking points from Kellyanne Conway over here.
Because her husband is sexting a 15-year-old girl in North Carolina. That's how we got back to this place. This is not the vast right-wing conspiracy. This is not the RNC or the Trump campaign. It's Huma Abedin's
According
husband.
to a source close to the investigation, she says it wasn't her computer. First she heard about this was Friday when the news broke.
Well, we don't know that. Apparently, Jim Comey and others disagree, or others doing the federal investigation into her husband's pedophiliac proclivities. And the fact
But they
is,
haven't seen the emails.
Well, none of us have. But what Mike Pence is calling for is what we've always called for, which is full disclosure and transparency, honesty and immediacy. And that is really a problem that Hillary Clinton and her never-ending scandalabra always has, which is, do people trust her to always tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Her entire career is Hillary first. Our message is America first. Hers is Hillary first, whether she's representing a rapist and getting him off of a 12-year-old girl back in the 1970s, or she's doing this in the first place. The whole reason you and I are having this conversation is because Hillary Clinton decided to flout the law, set up a private server, put on emails that Jim Comey himself has said were classified and contain national security information.
On July 5th, Jim Comey...
So, yeah, I thought in terms of what Kellyanne Conway does, that was much better than the previous clip. It was much more concise. In less than a minute, she got pedophilia in. She got her whole never-ending scandalabra soundbite in, and she got to mention Hillary Clinton and rape, and that was in less than a minute. So if you're a Kellyanne Conway fan, that's for you. And now I want to move on to sort of the flip of that answer there. This is the Democratic campaign manager, Robby Mook, being asked by Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday to explain why he hasn't asked Huma Abedin, what's going on here, what's in these emails, since Huma Abedin is part of the Hillary Clinton campaign. And you'll see here Robby Mook does his best to refuse to accept the premise that Anthony Weiner and Huma Abedin are definitely involved. And I don't think Chris Wallace ever pins him down on that, as you will see as we watch the clip together over here.
The ability of the American people to get all the information out. There is someone who knows what's in all those emails, and that is Huma Abedin. Has Secretary Clinton asked her what's in those emails?
Well, Chris, the problem with what you're just saying there is we don't know. We don't know where these emails are from. You're making an inference that it could have been Huma Abedin. Your guess is as good as anyone. And this is why Director Comey needs to get all the information out there.
I'm asking you a direct question. Has Secretary Clinton asked Huma Abedin what was on that laptop that she shared with her husband, Anthony Weiner?
She hasn't, because you just offered a hypothetical on the table. Let me offer you some hypotheticals that I've read in the press. I've heard a hypothetical that these emails had nothing to do with Hillary Clinton whatsoever, that she didn't send or receive any of them.
That doesn't matter. It's still the question of what's in the emails. So why wouldn't she ask Huma Abedin Did you have emails on the laptop, and what's in them? And why wouldn't she ask her?
Well, Chris, you and I are on the same page here. I want to know what's in these emails, too. And Director Comey has put out a letter. It has 3 paragraphs. It says nothing about Huma Abedin. It says nothing about who these emails were to or from. He just said he has information that may be significant. We don't even know if it is. And you showed some of his testimony to Congress just now, where they asked if there's significant information, would you reopen the case? And he said, yes, we will take a look at it. The problem is, we learned from Yahoo News last night, we don't even think he's taken a look at any of this.
But again,
we don't know if anybody has.
There is at least there's credible reporting out there that this came from the laptop of Anthony Weiner and Huma Abedin. Why on earth wouldn't Hillary Clinton say to her closest personal aide, was there any stuff on that on your laptop, and was it?
Chris, again, I appreciate your question because people want answers. There's nothing about Huma Abedin in the letter that was
I know
sent
that,
out.
but why wouldn't Clinton ask her?
Well, why wouldn't Clinton ask anybody? They could be emails from anybody in the world.
But
I mean,
there are no reports that it's
literally
anybody
don't
else
know.
except Huma Abedin.
Again, you're putting out some hypotheticals. There are other hypotheticals that have been put out there. For
It's on the front page of every paper in America, including, I suspect, although I haven't read it, Yahoo News.
Well, and again, I appreciate what you're asking because everybody wants to have the answer, and there's a person who can answer this question, and that's Director Comey. He should put out more information, get everything on the table. He release the information itself, at least provide more detail about what he's talking about. But 10 days out from an election, he's come under intense criticism from former Justice Department officials who've said this is entirely a breach of protocol. There is a standard that 6 weeks from an election, you don't put out insinuations like this, and all that's in that letter is innuendo.
Okay,
we have no details whatsoever.
Robby, I want to move on, and I want to ask you about Secretary.
So you can see Robby Mook there, I think, is almost getting himself there to Kellyanne Conway levels. He's almost like the Democratic version of Kellyanne Conway on this issue. The wriggling he did there, that my favorite response he used a couple times there is, Chris, I appreciate your question because the American people want answers, and that's why I'm not going to answer your question. But you see, he kind of refused to accept the premise that Huma Abedin's computer and Anthony Weiner's computer are involved in the scandal. You know, even though Chris Wallace there, quiet there, Sandy, even though Chris Wallace tried to say it was based on credible reporting, and I think Robby Mook did a pretty good job of wriggling, but I want to show you how Jake Tapper handled the same issue with the Hillary Clinton campaign chair, John Podesta, and I don't know, he either pinned him down better or John Podesta just did a worse job of wriggling. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section, because I think Jake Tapper made this really strong argument about the difference between speculation and reporting, and I think what he means by reporting is that credible news organizations have confirmed based on like multiple anonymous sources, which I don't know, that it depends on how much you trust your news organizations and how much you trust their anonymous sources not to be feeding them false information. And I don't know, I'm a little disturbed by the strength with which Jake Tapper is making this argument, but John Podesta seems to accept it in basically the struggle that's very similar to what you saw between Chris Wallace and Robby Mook, or on the same issue, and I'll discuss it after we watch it together here.
Part of this Judicial Watch lawsuit, Huma Abedin had to testify under oath, and she said, quote, I looked for all the devices that may have had any of my State Department work on it and returned, gave them to my attorneys for them to review for all relevant documents, and gave them devices and paper. Obviously, this other computer was not included in that group. Have you asked Huma Abedin why she did not turn over this computer that is now being reviewed by the FBI?
Look, I think Huma's been completely cooperative with the authorities, and they've recognized that. She's worked with her attorneys to turn over relevant material. But we don't know what this is all about, really. So it's very hard.
But, John, she hasn't been completely cooperative if she didn't turn over every device that had State Department emails on them, and this one computer did.
I think it's clear that she complied to the best of her ability, turned everything over that she had in her possession. I don't know anything more than the speculation that's running wild in the press now about what this is about. I've talked to her.
Have you talked to her? Have you asked Huma Abedin what is on the computer and why she didn't turn it over when she said she had divided all the devices? We don't know what computer
Mr. Comey is talking about. You're assuming a lot of facts that we don't know. So I think that, as I said, she's been fully cooperative with the authorities, and they have recognized that. And I think that we can sit here and speculate and put facts into the record based on.
I'm not speculating, sir.
Reports.
Our reporting is that it was a laptop computer that belonged to Anthony Weiner, and they found State Department emails on that laptop. That's reporting. That's not speculation. You have access to Huma Abedin. I don't. Have you asked her how this happened?
I don't think she knows anything more than what we've seen in the press to date. So, I'm sure if people. Proper authorities want to ask her questions, they'll ask her questions, but she's been fully cooperative in this investigation.
She came off the campaign trail on Saturday.
So that is actually the last clip I want to show in the whole Anthony Weiner scandal portion of my broadcast. You can let me know what you think about the way John Podesta answered that question, and specifically the way Jake Tapper tried to pin him down by saying, this isn't speculation, this is reporting. We're reporting this, and I would feel more comfortable with that if they were reporting it based on named sources rather than. I assume it's got to be at least 2 anonymous sources. I think that's the standard of most of the news organizations. They don't report on something based on anonymous sources until they have it from like 2 independent anonymous sources. I'm hoping that's the way they're reporting it, but he didn't even say what the basis of their reporting was, and so that does make me a little uneasy. You can let me know if it makes you uneasy down in the comment section. And so, like I said, that's the last clip on the breaking Weiner Huma Abedin laptop email scandal that broke on Friday and seems to have taken over almost all of the coverage. All the coverage, of course, on Fox News Sunday, where they really drilled down into it. If that's something you want to see, I have links down in the video description to all the sources of my clips. But this next topic, so now I want to show you some of the polls. I did show you briefly that ABC tracking poll where Hillary Clinton has lost 11 points in the nationwide likely voter category. And that's actually not as important as some of the battleground states. And the first couple battleground states I want to show you is from NBC had a couple battleground polls. These, I think, were all taken before the latest Anthony Weiner email scandal, whatever you want to call it, broke. But it shows that the race is actually tightening in Florida, but still with Hillary Clinton pretty far ahead in North Carolina. If she wins North Carolina, based on something I'll show you a little later, Donald Trump basically can't win if she wins North Carolina. But I'll talk about that a little more after we watch that 1-minute clip over here.
Our brand new NBC News Wall Street Journal Marist polls might have been the lead this morning with our 2 battleground states. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump both need Florida and North Carolina. But again, both of these polls were conducted before the FBI's bombshell announcement on Friday about the emails. But here's where things stood essentially through Thursday. In Florida, the race neck and neck among likely voters, 45-44, negligible lead there for Clinton. Early this month, we had her up by 3. And in North Carolina, though, this was would have been a big story this morning, pre-FBI. North Carolina, Clinton up 6, 47-41. Her lead had grown by 2 points. North Carolina is Clinton's best shot at winning a state. President Obama lost in 2012. What's interesting there, Mike, is I feel like it gives you a status of the race, essentially where we were going in. And North Carolina in particular, the early vote, everything, she may have already built up a flood wall.
Yeah, no, she is still, even with all this, in pretty good shape. Maybe it'll tighten and help the down-ballot Republicans.
So yeah, that's Mike Murphy. I forgot to put him in the video description, but you can see there Chuck Todd pointing out that Hillary Clinton has a really strong lead, and Mike Murphy was about to confirm that she has sort of a flood wall there. And I'm going to show a clip a little later on how Donald Trump has always had, or for quite a while, has had a really, really narrow path. Well, Hillary Clinton can lose all sorts of states and still put together enough to get to 270 electoral votes. Like, if she wins North Carolina, there's basically no way for Donald Trump to win, as I'll show in just a few minutes, or in the clip after next. But the next clip I want to show is actually from CBS, where John Dickerson and Anthony Salvato talk about some of the battleground states, including North Carolina. They also show Pennsylvania, Colorado, and Arizona. And they talk about the reason that Hillary Clinton has been leading in these states has to do with the fact that Democrats are more loyal to Hillary Clinton than Republicans are to Donald Trump, which I will discuss after we watch that clip together over here.
From those key states that will decide the election. In Pennsylvania, Hillary Clinton holds an 8-point lead over Donald Trump, 48-40. North Carolina shows a tight race. Clinton leads Trump there, 48% to 45%. It's also a 3-point margin in Colorado, where Hillary Clinton is at 42 and Trump is at 39. And in Arizona, a Republican-leaning state where Clinton is doing well, Trump leads by just 2 points, 44% to 42%. We continue with the mastermind behind the battleground tracker, along with our friends at YouGov. That's CBS News Director of Elections, Anthony Salvato. All right, Anthony, inside those states, what are you seeing in terms of turnout for both sides?
Okay, the first thing you want to look at is the party split. How many Democrats there are for Hillary Clinton, how many Republicans there are for Donald Trump. Because on the latter, Donald Trump has lagged among Republicans relative to how Hillary Clinton is doing with Democrats throughout this campaign, and that's still the case. So he's still not getting that full support from Republicans, and she is getting close to 9 and 10 Democrats, and that's adding up to effectively the difference in a lot of these states. And that's sort of mixed in there with a little bit of a growing gender gap, and I keep my eye on that. The difference between how men vote and how women vote, more women leaning towards Hillary Clinton, more men going towards Donald Trump.
So in Pennsylvania, our finding is that 78% of the Republicans are behind Donald Trump. Would that explain why he's down 8 points in Pennsylvania?
It does, and that sounds like a lot, and it feels like a lot, but it's not enough. And so what that tells you is
78%
78% is not enough. I mean, a typical Republican is going to get closer to 90%. And so even when, you heard Governor Pence talk about Republicans needing to come home, that's what he's talking about. They're probably seeing the same things in their data, that there are a lot of Republicans for Donald Trump, but not enough to make up the difference numerically.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of a really interesting analysis from Anthony Salvato and John Dickerson about how what may be the deciding factor in the election is how many more Democrats vote for Hillary Clinton than Republicans vote for Donald Trump. And it made me think about how, as someone who voted for Bernie Sanders, I've been saying for weeks now that I think it's important to vote for Hillary Clinton, especially if you're in a battleground state. But that just as an example, to show that I think it's important to vote for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump, even as a former Bernie Sanders voter, that I might even do it here in California, and I may even try to show you a ballot selfie, Justin Timberlake style, if I can figure out a way to do it without it being illegal here in California. I'll maybe more about that later, but I just want to say that I think that that analysis from CBS makes me think that if you're a Democrat, it's really important that you vote for Hillary Clinton, even if you were a Bernie Sanders supporter, even if you don't agree with her on a lot of things. And if you're a Republican, it's also really important that you don't vote for Donald Trump, that you lower those numbers. Otherwise, our country can be in a great deal of trouble. I think the difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, it's huge, and that's actually the last clip I'm going to show in just a couple minutes. But before I leave the topic of polls, there's one more clip I want to show you. It kind of explains what I was saying earlier about how Donald Trump has a very narrow path to winning, while there are a whole bunch of different ways Hillary Clinton can win this election. And especially if she wins North Carolina, it's pretty much over for reasons you'll see if watching this report from David Chalian over on CNN State of the Union this morning in the 90-second clip you can see here.
Jake, the very first place we're going to look to see the impact of the email story being back in the headlines is at Hillary Clinton's blue line of defense. Take a look. Colorado, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Virginia. These light blue states that have been leaning in her direction, that is what has her in such a strong position and over 270 already. Yes, she's battling out in the traditional battlegrounds, but this has been her source of strength. If we see polls coming out of there with her position starting to crumble there, alarm bells will go off in Brooklyn. There's no doubt about it. Take a look also at how Donald Trump might be able to seize on the headlines, and look what he's doing. Remember, this is our current state of play. The yellow states here are the 6 remaining true toss-up battleground states. If we were to assign every one of them, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, and Ohio, all to Donald Trump, remember, he's still shy of 270. He can't get there. So where does he go? He's got to dig into some of the blue-leaning territory. Well, this weekend we see him in Colorado twice. We see him going strangely to New Mexico, a state that is safely Democratic. Not many people in either party fully understand why he's going there. But that's where he's been to try to dig into turf. However, we also know he's headed to Michigan, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in a Wisconsin or a Pennsylvania this week as he tries to dig into some of Hillary Clinton's leaning territory. That is how he gets over the hump to 270. Back to you, Jake.
So I don't know exactly how to look at that analysis, and I've seen similar analyses on all the corporate media outlets. I mean, should it make me feel good that there's so many different ways the dice could come up or whatever, and have it come out Hillary Clinton, not Donald Trump? And as I said before I showed the clip, I think that Hillary Clinton is infinitely preferable to Donald Trump, even though I'm not the hugest Hillary Clinton fan. And I'm going to show the clip after next is going to be Bill Maher talking about that in his New Rules segment about people, especially millennials, who cynically make this false equivalency that shouldn't really be there between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. So maybe I should feel good that Hillary Clinton has so many paths, or maybe I should feel scared that Donald Trump actually has a viable path. It's still there. There have been several weeks where I felt a little bit complacent that maybe, I think 1 week I had my clip roundup titled Trump can't win, and Trump headed for huge loss, and there have been so many weeks where it looked like his campaign was in a nosedive, and maybe Hillary Clinton would have some sort of landslide mandate, which would be nice, just for not so much because she needs a mandate, but because it would be nice to say that the country soundly rejected Donald Trump and his brand of nationalistic proto-fascism, or whatever you want to call it, jingoistic, misogynistic, so many different istics that I can't even name them all. But so that's the last clip on the polls I want to show, but the next clip I want to show is actually about all the nasty isms that seem to come out of Donald Trump's mouth. This is the next 2 clips are the 2 clips on the campaign that aren't about Anthony Weiner or polls, even though Anthony Weiner's laptop and the Huma Abedin connection and James Comey's letter, that really dominated all the broadcasts, although I think Fox News Sunday was the only one to spend the whole hour drilling down on it. But this next clip, so this is a battle between Jake Tapper and Kellyanne Conway on whether Donald Trump is promoting racism and misogyny and anti-Semitism in his campaign, and specifically about this guy who they caught on video, I guess, chanting "USA, USA," and pointing at the media at a Trump rally. And Kellyanne Conway, of course, refuses to accept the premise of the question, and I don't think Jake Tapper does that good a job pinning her down on it, as I will explain after we watch that 4-minute attempt by Jake Tapper to pin her down on it over here.
At a Trump rally in Phoenix, Arizona last night, one of Trump's supporters walked up to the press section and started chanting this. Take a listen. The crowd was chanting USA. He was pointing to reporters and saying Jew-SA. We have seen a lot of anti-Semites and racists and misogynists who support the Trump candidacy.
Wow.
Would you call that man deplorable?
Wow, yes, I would. His conduct is completely unacceptable and does not reflect our campaign or our candidate. Wow, I have to push back on some of the adjectives you just used to describe. I hope you've been to Trump rallies, and I hope that you've seen the tens of thousands. I mean, he's had over 500,000 people easily, over, I think, in excess of that at his rallies. And these are USA-loving Americans who just want their country to be prosperous and safe again. Well, you just suggested that we're just filled with all these other isms, and I think that's incredibly fair. Hillary Clinton surrounds herself with
I'm
lots
not saying
of
that
people.
at all, Kellyanne.
Well,
I'm not saying that at all. Let me make clear what I am saying.
That man's conduct was deplorable, and had I been there, I would have asked security to remove him immediately. Clearly, he doesn't speak for the campaign or the candidate, and you know, I think what he had to say was disgusting.
Well, let me be clear what I am saying. The vast majority of Trump supporters do not qualify as to what I'm talking about. But without question, people who are experts on hate groups say that there has been a comfort level that has been offered to people who are anti-Semitic and racist and on, and these people feel comfortable coming out in the open and supporting Mr. Trump.
Comfort level by whom? A campaign I run, Jake? Seriously? Comfort level by
Not
whom?
you. Mr. Trump has refused to condemn in a very serious way his racist and anti-Semitic fans. He just has. He says things like, oh, sure, I disavow. But he has never seriously said, I don't want the support of those people. They are reprehensible. They have nothing to do with me. He has never seriously done it in the same way that you and Mike Pence has.
Yes, he has. He has done that. And let me just repeat on his behalf that that's the way this campaign feels. And, you know, I think that this exchange is frankly the best piece of evidence I have that we're actually going to win in 9 days, because the idea that we're going to shift away from the pattern of corruption, the cloud of ethical stain that Hillary Clinton would bring to the Oval Office. It's such an important weekend. We're again reminded why a majority of Americans already don't trust her or much like her, and we're going to bring this, try to besmirch the good people. I mean, I was in Kinston, North Carolina with Mr. Trump on Wednesday night. It's a very small town, I'm told. We had over 12,000 people there, and I asked the kids in the front row, what time did you get here, honey? 1 p.m. We were there at 8 p.m. These are people who love their country, and these are people who feel like they're part of a movement, that this is not a typical politician. He's an outsider, a disruptor, somebody who owes nobody anything in Washington, which is why Washington is afraid to have him there, Jake. Please, if you do anything, don't besmirch the good hearts and the good values of the tens of thousands, the millions of Donald Trump supporters who frankly just love this country and believe
Kellyanne,
he'll
I'm
put
not
it back
besmirching.
into
I'm not
prosperity.
besmirching.
Well,
I've just said the vast majority of Donald Trump fans have nothing to do with people like that. I've said that. I don't know what more I can say.
And so the point of this conversation is what? The point of we haven't even mentioned Huma Abedin's name. This woman and her perverted husband sexting a 15-year-old girl in North Carolina is now again possibly putting this nation's security at risk.
Yeah, and that we talked about that quite a bit with John Podesta. Let me ask you a question about health care. There are real...
And I'll spare you the question about health care, but if you really want to watch it, like I said, I put a link down in the video description to the source of all my clips, or all the clips that are available online that I can find anyway. I don't know. I think actually Jake Tapper did not do as great a job as he might have pinning Kellyanne Conway down, although not that he would have been able to anyway, but his follow-up questions there about how Donald Trump has not strongly disavowed these white supremacists. He didn't even mention the fact that Donald Trump has said all these racist, misogynist, whatever Islamophobic things, whatever you want to call it, over many years, and even during the course of the campaign, the ban all Muslims, the Mexicans are rapists, the Mexican judge can't be fair thing that even Paul Ryan said was the textbook definition of racism, even though being Mexican isn't a race, Islam isn't a race either, but Islamophobia can also be classified as a general racism sometimes, I think, if you aren't getting too technical about your dictionary definitions. Whatever, that didn't want to get into that whole controversy again, but I think that Jake Tapper definitely could have done a better job of pinning down Kellyanne Conway just by talking about things that Donald Trump actually said that promote racism or sexism or Islamophobia or bigotry. I guess you could just call it bigotry and prejudice if you don't want to call it racism. But so that was the one clip on the Donald Trump side that didn't have to do with Anthony Weiner I wanted to show. And the last clip I want to show, so this is what I promised, where Bill Maher makes this impassioned plea to the cynical millennials who try to pretend they are, know so much when they don't really know anything. I think it's actually, if you watch the whole thing, and this is actually available on the Real-Time YouTube channel. I put a link down in the video description to the Real-Time YouTube channel, and you can check out the whole new rule for yourself if you want to watch it. This is the part where, and I think he's kind of harsh on millennials. Of course, Bill Maher is often harsh on the millennial generation, and here he talks about why it's really important not to draw this false equivalency. This part, the part I really agree with, is the lack of an equivalency between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and I'll talk about that after we watch this final 2-minute, 20-second clip for tonight over here.
I am so tired of hearing, I know Trump's a creep, but Hillary doesn't seem genuine. Grow the fuck up. She's a civil servant, not a craft beer. You know, whenever I'm out with my millennial friends, chasing the Pokemon or getting our nipples pierced, shaving our pubes, or arranging action figures while sending out dick pics, when the talk turns to the election, I hear some version of, they're both bad, or they deserve each other, or there's an election? Republicans have one path to victory in this election, and it's called false equivalency. They can't deny Trump is horrible. It's on tape. So they want voters to believe Hillary is just as bad. And in pursuit of that goal, they have a very powerful ally: lazy people. People who like to say they're all bad. Because when you say that, you don't have to do any homework. Say they're all the same, and then you can sound justifiably jaded by the entire process when really you just don't know anything. You say you're... You say you're cynical about politics? Don't flatter yourself. Cynical comes when you know too much. You, on the other hand, haven't bothered to learn anything. Which Americans, by the way, are capable of. Noam Chomsky once observed that when he listens to a sports call-in show, he said it's plain that quite a high degree of thought and analysis is going into that. People know all sorts of complicated details. On the other hand, he said, when I hear people talk about international affairs or domestic problems, it's at a level of superficiality that's beyond belief. In other words, we're not clueless. We just apply our brain power to bullshit. It's true.
I thought that was an interesting analysis from Bill Maher, especially the Noam Chomsky quote. I used to have a Noam Chomsky book up on my bookshelf over here. Actually, I think now it's like, see, I'm kind of blocking it here, but it's, you can see Manufacturing Consent, the great Noam Chomsky tome is right here on my bookshelf. So I think what Noam Chomsky said there about the difference between sports analysis and political analysis by a lot of the jocks that I grew up with, that's definitely true. But the other point about millennials being too cynical, I don't know. I work with a lot of people in the millennial generation who are really activist and motivated and informed, so I don't know if Bill Maher's right about that. But his other point about the false equivalency between Trump and Hillary Clinton, I see that in the comment section all the time. You know, they're both like scoundrels, or they're both criminals, or they're both corrupt, and I can't vote for either of them. Now, like I said before, I was a Bernie Sanders voter. I voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary. I can't prove that. I didn't take a ballot selfie. It's actually illegal here in California, but if I can work it out, I may take a ballot selfie to prove to you who I voted for in the presidential election. That'll be in the Liberal Viewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup I do after the election, unless I do a special election edition or post-election edition, like someone was just asking in the live comments I was reading during that last clip. Another upcoming video I'm making is a yes on 62, this is, and no on 66 anti-death penalty Halloween display. I should be putting that, I've been hoping to put that up, but it's been raining so much here in Sacramento that I haven't really been able to put it out in front of the house. But I got this from like the Spirit Store or Spirit Store online. I bought this guy getting electrocuted, and I have to set it up with some lawn signs that say yes on 62 and the death penalty in California, and then that also includes no on 66, which is this prosecutor initiative to speed up the death penalty, which really increases the risk that innocent people will be executed. So look for that. That video should be coming up sometime in the next week, or not in the next week, like before Halloween. That should be coming up tomorrow if I can get enough non-rain time to set up the display and videotape it and process the whole thing. And then I've also been promising this video book review of Who Cooked Adam Smith's Dinner. It'll be called like, Is Economics Anti-Feminist? I just posted a patron-only post over on my Patreon page about that, because I will be posting a draft video for comment and criticism from my patrons before I post the live video. I don't know if it's going to end up coming before or after the election. Maybe it will actually be after the election because of all the other things going on. And I've been doing a bunch of other stuff in real life. There's this one ACLU thing that might even be in the news that, but I don't know. Maybe sometime in the next week that'll come out too, and I can make a video about that. But those are the updates on videos I may be making. I appreciate all of you who watch my videos live or as recorded videos, who help me out by giving me a thumbs up down there, posting comments in the comment section, especially people who support my videos on Patreon. There's a link down in the video description to become one of my patrons on Patreon and get some of these special privileges. Also, sometimes people give me these direct donations, which are more anonymous through YouTube's fan funding. You can click on this little eye up here in the corner and become one of my fan funders. I won't really know who you are. I just know your like zip code that you donated from. But that's basically what's going on the YouTube channel in the coming week, or in the next couple weeks as we get to the real exciting election. Or it's just 9 days till the election now. So I hope you'll stay with the channel and give me your comments and your feedback. And until I have time to upload the next video that I just described, I guess I'll be seeing all of you around the internet.